special guests in attendance tonight, including City Council member Joni Bennett and Mary Brindle, who I think are at the back table. And some thank you. And school board members Edith Almag, Bert Letter, Regina Neville, Lonnie Skretner, and former member Brian Hedberg, and I saw quite a few of those in the middle table. Welcome. In real estate, a well-known phrase is location, location, location. Our community has a wonderful location. We're near the airport, we're close to downtown. However, location, location is not the only thing our city has going for it. Our schools rate in the top 100 nationally and attract new families to move in here on a daily basis. Our services are top-notch, our taxes are lower than our surrounding communities. We have businesses that bring in many new employees every day and new businesses investing on a monthly basis. Our housing stock has continued to be refurbished, for we had 25 new permits pulled last year, and our suburb to the south had 3. All of these things working together to keep our community healthy and vibrant. That is why it's so important for our 3 city leaders, the mayor, our city manager, and our school superintendent, to come together and give the state of the city to our residents and business community. I'm going to introduce my friend and our mayor, Jim Hovland. He has served us for 14 years, of which half of those he served as mayor. You can read his bio in your program along with the bios of the other 3 speakers, but I would say the strength that Mayor Hovland brings is his interest in the community and that he cares about every single resident. Jim?
Thank you, Ann. That was a very, very nice thing to say. Well, we're going to talk about the state of the community. It's broken into a couple of components. Scott and I are going to talk about the state of the city. And I think generally I can tell you that the state of the city relative to the state of Minnesota is in fantastic shape. We're probably the least impacted city in the state when it comes to things like local government aid, which we don't get, and one other issue called market value homestead credit. The school district is hit hard, and Rick will talk about that. Nonetheless, he's got some wonderful students in the pipeline, and I just wanted to take 60 seconds to tell you a quick story about one of them that's starting into the school system. Kevin Reese, a friend of ours who's in the Morning Rotary, was telling our Morning Rotary group, so those of you in the Morning Rotary, I apologize for giving the story again. One of the other realtors at Edina Realty told him that they'd gone to a birthday party for Grandma, and the cake, when the candles were lit, looked like Rome was burning. And the candles got blown out, and the little guy the grandson asked, "Grandma, how old are you?" And whether she didn't want to tell him or didn't know, she said, "Well, I'm not quite sure." And to show how bright this kid is, he said, "Well, Grandma, just look in your underwear. When I look in mine, it says age 5. 2010 was a transition year for the city. And I thought what would be good for the state of the city would be to give kind of a report card on how things are going, what happened in 2010. I think people are always interested in knowing these particular areas that we chose to report out on. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the building permit revenue. People are always asking, well, how are things going on the building permit revenue side? Building and permit revenue began recovering in 2010 as we saw changes in the economy. 2010 revenue was over $1.8 million with 5,602 permits issued. Revenue increased by 13.3% from 2009 when $1.6 million was collected for permits issued. Permits increased from 4,900 in 2009 to 5,600 in 2010, a 14% increase. Revenue for the first quarter of 2011 is below budgeted revenue for the comparable period. Last year, average 2011 monthly revenue through March is $111,000. That's 17.5% below the average monthly revenue for prior years. Permits issued for the first quarter of 2011 are on track with the prior 10 years. So we wanted to give a little bit of that background. I think where we've been particularly strong in the permit area is on the residential side. The commercial side has been hurting us a little bit, but all the way through the so-called Great Recession, our community has remained very strong on the residential side with a lot of building permits, residential remodeling going on, and also I think the tear-down reconstruction numbers held fairly steady. One of the things I think people always like to hear about is what's going on from a land use standpoint in the town. We did a Whole Foods groundbreaking last week, and I think we've got some video here from the Whole Foods groundbreaking, which is going to be down at the old Storables location by Centennial Lakes. This represents one of several construction projects underway. As I mentioned, we broke ground last week. And the new store will be 35,000 square feet, and it will occupy the space formerly occupied, as I mentioned, by Storables and Thomasville Furniture. Completion date is expected to be, I think, roughly November 1st of this year. In doing the groundbreaking last week, I will just tell you as an aside, one of the developers reps told me that when Whole Foods comes into an area, along with Whole Foods come other retailers that like to be close to them because of the demographics. So he said we could expect to see over the next few months some other activity in that area. Also, for those of you who probably know that the McDonald's closed out there, this person told me that that was going to be occupied soon, I think, by a small cafeteria or deli operation. I don't know what's going to happen with the old Navy store, but apparently they would like a smaller store, and that's the reason that they're moving. So we'd expect to see something new there as well in light of the Whole Foods store coming in. Some of you may know that the YMCA is also undergoing reconstruction. They're adding a 15,000 square foot addition to the Southdale YMCA. There will be a new leisure pool, fitness center, and studio that will be added. Total size of the new YMCA will be 82,100 square feet. The completion date for that project is expected to be January 1st, 2012. And as long as we're down in that same neighborhood, if you've driven down York Avenue, you probably noticed the big addition at 7500 York, which is a memory care unit, and that's Ebenezer Society, and Fairview Southdale has been integrally involved in that as well. We got a lot of requests from folks that have aged in place at 7500 York that either have a spouse that now needs to move into a memory care unit, or they both want to move over, but they don't want to leave that neighborhood. So we were able to work with Ebenezer to put together that really substantial and now quite beautiful facility adjacent to 7500 York. One of the other projects we worked on within the last year that involved some controversy was the Living Waters project on the Colonial Church site. The City Council has approved rezoning a site plan and a comprehensive plan amendment for the Waters Senior Living of Edina, which is a 139-unit, three-story senior housing complex, as I mentioned, on the Colonial Church site. The final plat approval is still pending. I think the developer would like to try to figure out a way to put some affordable housing in the facility, and in some preliminary meetings with them, and I expect them to be back to the council shortly. I think they're thinking about shrinking up the building a bit in the common areas to accommodate at least 7 affordable housing units, so that folks in Edina that couldn't otherwise afford to live there might have a chance to spend their senior years in a very beautiful facility. You also probably have read in the paper about all the exciting activities going on over at Southdale. And we've got the manager and the assistant manager here with us today, and I welcome both of them here. Southdale Center, of course, has announced that Herberger's will be moving into the former Mervyn space this fall. That space, as I recall, has been empty for about 7 years. So it is really great to have a solid tenant like Herberger's coming in. I think it's over 130,000 square feet of retail space that Herberger's will be occupying. There's some other things that will be taking place out at Southdale. They're going to move the food court from the 3rd floor down near Penny's on the 2nd floor. There's some discussion about reconstruction of bathrooms, flooring material, a new soft play area for kids, moving one of the hallways from between, I think it's Ann Taylor and Abercrombie and Fitch. That'll be moved over between Ann Taylor and Victoria's Secret. So in these discussions with regard to Herberger's coming in and all of the extensive remodeling work that's going on out there, which I think will exceed $32 million if everything goes right, Simon Development, which owns Southdale, has approached the city about being a partner with some of this rehabilitation work. And this is going to be a real interesting discussion. We've had one discussion about it at the council level already. We will have folks here from Simon Development in Indianapolis next week to visit about this notion of the city assisting them with the rehabilitation of Southdale. And I think it will, sort of the core question that will be involved will be, is this a subsidy or is this an investment of public money? And if so, is there a return on public investment? So I think it'll be quite an interesting and frank discussion. There are folks on our council that have varying opinions on this. We've never had to address this issue, frankly, in Edina, and we're not fearful of addressing it. We think it's extremely interesting. It is the most significant commercial property in our city. It is the linchpin for the entire Southdale district. We understand all of that, but we still have to look at this with a mindful eye towards the use, efficient use, and effective use of public funds. So we're looking forward to that discussion. That's it kind of on the land use side. We're going to be able to talk about some of these things in a Q&A period when we're finished. Let's now talk about the area of public safety, which folks always have an interest in. And I want to tell you that Edina continues to be one of the safest communities in the Twin Cities metro area, thanks to the work of our police and fire departments. So first, let's talk about some of the work of the police department. I see Chief Long back there. Chief, if you want to raise your hand quickly. And you know, it was a real seamless transition from Mike Satari to Jeff Long. Jeff has just done a terrific job. He's a great communicator with residents and the council alike. There doesn't seem to be a day that goes by where we don't have some issue going on. And the latest one, and you may have them in your neighborhood, coyotes. And that will be the discussion that we have in part next Tuesday night, what to do with coyotes. So let's look first at the PowerPoint slide that deals with thefts. The total of residential and non-residential theft from autos is 37 year-to-date, down 21% from 2010. There were 12 reported incidents of residential theft from auto in the first quarter of 2011, down from 19 in 2010. Five of the thefts were concurrent at Berry Road, and 11 of the 12 happened at multiple unit dwellings in underground garages and adjacent parking lots. So I think there's an educational component from our police department for folks that are living in multi-unit dwellings with underground parking or adjacent parking lots. Next, let's take a look at some of the burglary information that we have, some of that data. The total residential and non-residential first quarter burglary count is 23. That's down 48% from 2010. There have been 8 incidents of residential burglary reported in the first quarter of this year. At this time last year, 20 had been reported. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the concept of shared services as we transition from this particular information into what our dispatch folks are doing. The chief came to us with the notion of sharing dispatching services with Golden Valley. As we have looked at the financial challenges that affect cities, there's been a general discussion in the metro area and probably beyond about cities sharing services to minimize costs to taxpayers. I can tell you that Edina has been in that business of looking at shared services for quite some time. One of the most prominent areas that we do that in is public health, where we do not have our own public health department per se. We buy our public health services from the city of Bloomington. They are our partner, as does the city of Richfield. Well, this was another opportunity for us to engage in shared services. The chief came to us with the idea late last year, and then late last year, the police department's 911 dispatching service center became a multi-agency communications center. Edina began dispatching for Golden Valley on December 16th. The police chief reports that the transition went smoothly despite having less than 4 months to plan, prepare, and train people involved. Dispatchers processed nearly 5,000 more calls for service during the first quarter of 2011 versus the first quarter of 2010. We are on track to handle between 19 and 20,000 Golden Valley calls in 2011. We expect to be fully staffed by September to handle this additional volume of traffic. Although staffing levels will increase once fully staffed, the call load has been manageable for our current level of staffing. 2 dispatchers on duty for 18 to 20 hours a day, and dispatchers continue to provide a high level of service to citizens and responders. Now let's talk about what's been going on over at the fire department. The fire department has responded to 4,509 calls in 2010, 161 calls more than in 2009, and only 13 less than in 2007, our highest year for calls. Of the 4,500 calls, approximate calls received in 2010, nearly 3,600 were for emergency medical service. 69 were for fires, almost 380 were for false alarms. I think you get one free bite on the false alarm, so if you've had to suffer through more than one free call, thank you for helping the city coffers. So we don't like that, but we have to be mindful of these false alarms. So, you know, in talking about the emergency medical response, one of the things that we've done over the years is to try to develop a real solid relationship with Fairview Southdale. Many of you have heard about and I think we've talked about it in prior states of the city, where we have set up this system where there's wireless transmission of data when a person has a cardiac issue at their home. And so that by the time the person is delivered by our EMTs to Fairview Southdale, the cath lab team is already in place. And oftentimes, what they call door to balloon time until they're able to get everything functioning again is as little as a half an hour, whereas the standard nationwide is much greater. So the fire chief told me this morning in a phone call, and this is extraordinarily important and exciting news, that there is a cardiac event study that has been conducted nationwide. And they look at final outcomes. In other words, is a person able to eventually get up, get out of bed, and walk out of the hospital either on their own or with some assistance? Hennepin County is double the national average in terms of getting people back on their feet and out the door. Edina is double the save rate of Hennepin County. In fact, Edina is number 1 in the United States in save rates for cardiac events. We are 250 times more likely to save you in Edina than anywhere in the United States. We are number 1 in the United States. And I don't know if Chief Scheer is here, but he sure should stick his hand up if he is and get that appropriate acknowledgement. Let's talk about the type of fires that we experienced in 2010. There were 27 structure fires. 11 were confined to cooking, chimney, or furnace fires, 14 vehicle fires, and 17 grass, trash, dumpster, or outside equipment fires. And sadly, and really unfortunately, we responded to 2 fire-related fatalities in 2010, and another one last week over on Oaklawn. Very, very tragic situations that our fire department was not able to do anything about. The folks were dead upon arrival. We also gave mutual aid to other cities on fire-related matters 48 times in 2010. Next, let's take a look at our new public works facility that I'm sure many of you have seen over off Metro Boulevard. I will tell you that is, speaking of transition years, the new public works facility is the last public building in town that needed to be touched. Whether it's a school district building or a city building, this was the last one that we needed to address so that we could set the stage for the next 50 to 100 years. We're going methodically through our town also with street reconstruction. Some of you have had to suffer with special assessments because of that, but nonetheless, when we look at what's important when people go to buy a home, infrastructure, the condition of infrastructure is critical. And so this building was one that we moved into in July. We moved from the old facility over behind Jerry's, and you've seen that that's empty, and we're in the process of starting what's called a small area plan study to figure out what to do with that property with a lot of public input. Wayne Hool is the Director of Public Works. Wayne is back there. Wayne, thank you for coming today. Wayne and his crew were instrumental in finding this building, which was the old ConAgra popcorn plant, if you remember that, the Golden Valley Microwave Foods. I think during the time I've been on the council, we've looked at 6 to 10 buildings to look at remodeling. You know, nothing's easy in a fully developed town. We finally found one that people that specialize, architects that specialize in these types of buildings, public works buildings, said this one will work. And so we moved in July, and it has provided extraordinary space for our equipment and our operations. And I think Wayne would verify that it has been just a pleasure to work from. And we also have community meeting rooms over there. If someone needs to contact Wayne for a meeting of a type that they want to have with their neighborhood, he can accommodate folks down there as well. The building is among one of the greenest in our community. The Minnesota Environmental Initiative has named the facility a finalist for the Environmental Initiative Award in the Sustainable Communities category. MEI's annual Environmental Initiative Awards program honors projects that have achieved extraordinary outcomes for Minnesota's environment by harnessing the power of partnership. The winner will be announced next month. Now, in 2010, we also had some significant staff changes. Among the most significant changes in your local government in 2010 were in the area of the police department. We've already introduced Chief Long, and he has been doing a wonderful job, as I mentioned earlier. We have 2 new managers for 2 of our enterprise facilities, Doug Bauman as manager of Braemar Arena, and Todd Anderson, who took over for John Valerie as manager of the Braemar Golf Course. All of these folks have been long-term employees of the city. As necessitated by today's society and because probable internal efficiencies were identified, the City Hall and Police Department IT staffs were also merged late last summer and a new department created. Matt Sisterman was promoted to lead them as IT Director. Now I want to discuss the most significant hire that we made in 2010, and that was our city manager. In fact, if you understand our form of local government, this Plan B government, that's the only hire that the City Council is allowed to make. And so we went through an exhaustive process with the assistance of some outside consultants, and I would say some good advice from school board members who had gone through the process before they hired Rick several years ago. And we ended up with the manager of a city very nearby, our neighbor to the south, some call it Baja Edina, Eden Prairie. And I had worked with Scott over the years that I've been mayor on what's called the Municipal Legislative Commission, and had seen the fine job that he had done at Eden Prairie. And I think Gordon Hughes, our former city manager, had talked to Scott and suggested that he should be interested in this job, and we were so grateful that he applied. He's everything that we expected him to be. He's wonderful with people. He's a great writer and communicator. He's very open and receptive to change, and he has, just in this short 5-month period he has been here, come up with some big ideas, the equivalent of Letterman's 10 big ideas, and I'm going to bring Scott up here right now to talk about those 10 big ideas. Please help me welcome Scott Neal.
Baja Edina, huh? Yeah. Gordon called it that all the time. That was a great joke. Well, I'm really happy to be able to be here today and to do the State of the Community with you. I've done this a few times before, first time here. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we called sort of internally the Big Ideas Listening Tour, and really what it was meant to do was meant to provide me access to employees at all levels of our organization to provide them an opportunity to get to know me more in a one-on-one setting, and the reverse. Of course, a chance for me to meet many of them in a one-on-one setting. And really, the charge that I gave them was nothing more than, tell me what you think I need to know as I start my job here. Tell me what you think we need to do better. Tell me what you think we need to do more of or less of. And I really got a lot of great feedback. It was voluntary. I had these meetings kind of morning, noon, and night, 6 a.m. in the morning and 9 p.m. at night, and all different kinds of city facilities. So we had great participation from all over our organization. And I heard a lot of interesting things. And some of it I have incorporated into what the mayor called the 10 big ideas, some of which some of you've seen in a video that was really meant to be more internal, but then got out into YouTube world, and it's out there. So if you want to see that sometime, you can. I'm going to talk really about 4 of them that I think are perhaps of more of interest to the general membership of the chamber and also to the general public. One of those ideas that came out was that for many years, Edina has been able to call all the shots in the economic development world. If you wanted to be in Edina, then here are the rules, and if you don't want to follow them, then okay. But this is where you want to be. And for many years, people wanted to follow those rules because they wanted to be here. I think what we have seen in recent history, though, is you've seen many different other communities who have kind of been chasing this Edina ideal become more successful in reaching those standards. And you don't have to look too far, whether it's in the larger cities, whether it's Uptown or Grand Avenue in Minneapolis and St. Paul, or whether it's Arbor Lakes and Maple Grove, or just to the north, to the West End and Excelsior and Grand and St. Louis Park. People are wanting to achieve the same kind of success on the commercial and residential side that Edina has achieved over the many years. The world hasn't stood still, and we need to keep up with it. And I think we need to try to achieve the next level in that terms of economic development. So later this year, I'm going to be working with the council and proposing that we take a look at how we do economic development here. In particular, how do we staff it? How do we respond to it? Not how much money do we throw at it or do we chase smokestacks, but really strategically looking at what are our strengths as a community and what do we want our economic future to be. It's strong right now. If we want it to be strong in the future, we need to compete, and we need to outcompete our competitor cities, and I want to be part of that effort. In the next area that I talked about in the big ideas was really one called public data information management. Cities, not just Edina, but cities in particular, create massive amounts of data, almost all of which is public data. And some of which, maybe a small part, but you know, maybe a large part too, should be accessible to you as residents. Right now, it's not as easy to get at that data for a lot of reasons. We can't always put our fingers on it as quickly as we want. Sometimes when we do, we've provided something to somebody that's not exactly what they needed or they asked for. So one of the things that we're going to work on this year is really getting a hold of the kind of public data and information that we have and manage it better. Put it into a setting that's easily accessible, conveniently accessible by the folks that live here and need that kind of information. And that's not as easy as it might sound for those of you who are in the information management business. We have it in all kinds of formats, and some information we've got 100 years of. So we need to take a look at what people are requesting, but also we want people to be able to access it, and we really want people to get this information so that they can help us do a better job. We want to be able to harness what I think is the biggest asset of this community, and that's the collective brain power of its residents. One of the things that I think I have a unique perspective to do as kind of one of the first outsider city managers in the community in many, many years is to take a look at kind of the assumptions and the cultural values of our organization and really to try to learn them, question them, and perhaps change them where necessary. One of the things I'm going to be doing later this year as we hire a new assistant city manager is really charge that person with getting at developing what our organizational culture is and adapting it where it needs to be adapted and adapting to it where it's important to adapt to it. We think we want to take a look at what are the cultural values of our organization. What does our compensation system incent people to do and not incent people to do? very key questions that we want to know the answers to so that we can make sure our organization is moving people and directing people to do the right thing. The final aspect of what I talked about in our 10 Big Ideas presentation is something I'll call data-driven decisions. You know, it comes really back to the question of how do we know what we know? Where does our information come from, and how do we use it to the benefit of the community? It's a really fundamental question. You know, do we shape our policy based on our customs and who our friends are and what our gut instincts are, or do we really go out there and find hard information and data like many of you do in your business lives and make our decisions based on that? We are in a government, we are in a political world, we can't always do that, but we should do it, we should strive for that, and we should try to do it as much as we can. And that's going to be one of my goals for this year, and actually for going forward for many years. And one of the first examples of that I think you're going to see is going to kick off later next month with something we call the 2011 Quality of Life Survey. It's a survey that we've been working on with our council and also with representatives from Decision Resources. And they're going to be doing a baseline survey of citizen satisfaction of the city, and not just of city services, but also taking a look at what's going on around the community and trying to gather some input on what people would like to see and versus what people appreciate now in our facilities and the direction of city government, et cetera. And it's information that is interesting not just because of the responses that we're going to get back from residents, but when we start to use the statistical cross-tabulations of question number 40 with question number 80 and the demographic information that comes from this, we're really going to get to know a lot about our community, and I think hopefully use that to shape our public policy decisions even better for the future. One of the things that I think is important in the way that we move forward is our partnerships, and having a strong partnership with the school district is really one of the most important partners that we can have. And I have some experience on that, working with school districts in other Minnesota communities, and I've had the great fortune to land in Edina with a very strong school district and a strong superintendent. So it's my pleasure right now to introduce the superintendent, Dr. Rick Dressen, and he will give the school district portion of today's State of the Community. Dr. Dressen.
Thank you, Scott, and it's great to work with you. And on behalf of the school board and the administration, we do appreciate our partnership with the city of Edina, but also with the community. It's only fitting at this point, though, that I do have to put a pause in the event because there's a person here we need to recognize who's been a very important part of our partnership. A person who is getting to the sunset of their experiences as an employee of Edina Public Schools. Doug Johnson will be retiring after 30 years of serving Edina Public Schools. Doug Johnson. Because this is an amazing community, and it comes together by key people. And then, Doug, you have been one of those key people, and you continue to be, and I know even after retirement, you're going to be one of those players. I, too, want to talk about the big ideas going on in Edina Public Schools. It is a big idea, a place that's got great successes. I can tell you right now, the 8,158 students are busy doing their learning. Our big idea focuses on several areas. One is making sure that we are staffing, equipping, and teaching students through technology. We're really reaching a tipping point with technology in our schools, where it's coming alive, where it's a key piece that will continue to drive how students learn, where they learn, and when they learn. Our talking point is that it's going to be anytime, any place, and any device, and our students are ready for it, our teachers are going to be ready for it, and I know our community will be there to support it. You may have driven by the billboards noting that we are one of those Google winners. That billboard was not paid for by Edina Public Schools, I can guarantee you, but rather Google. It was the first international award this school district has won. We are one of 10 agencies, organizations, businesses, or school districts, one of 10 internationally to be recognized by Google for the work we're doing on cloud technology and using the Google applications to enhance student learning. We'll continue to grow that. We've now hit national, we've hit international, we're now going intergalactic will be our next project. Second big piece of where we're going is around refining our strategic plan. We'll continue in 2011-12 focus on those big three areas that have been part of our school district over the last 5 years, making sure every student has a personalized learning experience where they have options and opportunities to grow, to advance, to make sure that we're catching them to be successful learners going forward. And we continue to create an early childhood through grade 12 learning experience for our students. It's seamless, it has a flow to it, and when they reach that final point of walking across the graduation stage, they're ready for the world. We're also going to continue to emphasize our work on partnerships and seek new partnerships with beyond just the city and beyond the school district, but look at new creative ways that we continue to maximize our resources and working with other agencies and organizations. Another big push that we have, a big idea, is around advancing accountability. We know that we can continue to grow that, and we will continue to grow it. We're going to continue to ensure that all students are successful. And one of our big focuses will be is helping the students take ownership of their learning so they have a better understanding of the importance of education, what it means for them, and the opportunities they have to control their success in the future. We're also going to find new measurements rather than just test scores to look at how we are successful as a school district. We're going to look at new and creative ways to make sure that we have the best measurements available, a broad scorecard, as it were, of how we can measure success in our school district. We're also looking at updating how we assess our staff and our performances. All of us can be better at being accountable, and we can tie that and link that where we can to how our students are doing. And so we're stepping back and taking a new look at how we continue to measure performance of all people involved in the school district. The final piece will be just about expanding that personalized learning experience. We know we can do it. We've done it in the past. It's been about Edina all the way across the board that we've been bold and creative, and we're taking that next step. We're going to continue to cultivate relationships because we know it's about that personal relationship. And while technology can have great successes, it's still that personal relationship of using data, of measuring how students are doing, or measuring how staff is doing, how classrooms are doing, using that data, then responding when we need to. If they're ready to move faster, we move them along faster. When they need more options, we give them more options. And when they need additional assistance, we're there to help them as well. We'll continue to focus on our mission of partnerships of all learners to thrive in society. And we need to do this around maximizing the resources, because those resources are a limited pool of how can we use time differently? How can we use our facilities differently? How can we make sure the staff time we have is used best for learning? And finally, how do we measure and use that resources of funding to make sure that we are maximizing every nickel that we do get from our taxpayers and from our state? And this is our biggest challenge. As we project 3 years out, we're estimating that we could have a funding gap between revenues and expenditures of almost $9 million. That's about 10% of our school district's funding. And that's a gap that is challenging us. As we look to the 2011-12 school year, we've already taken that on and are looking to reduce our expenditures and extend our revenues where we can by just over $2 million to $2.5 million. This is something we're still determining because 70% of our funding comes from the state of Minnesota. 70% of our funding comes from the state of Minnesota, so we're very dependent on what happens at the legislative level. We've got great support from our local legislators. We know they're going to figure it out in St. Paul, but the bottom line is that's going to be a challenge for us going forward. And so we will continue to be creative to make sure we maximize the resources, but this is going to involve reductions. It's going to involve change in how we deliver services to make sure in the end we use the funding we have, we use the time we have, and we use the staff we have to make sure our students are truly 21st and 22nd century ready for the world they're going to live in. I know the key to this whole answer is going to be about partnerships. It's going to be about community. It's going to be about coming together and solving problems. We've been doing that over the past months, focusing on the finance. But as we go forward and look at our new picture, we're going to again call in the community and seek partnerships of how we can continue to grow the best education system in the world for our young people. And I know together we will. So I thank you again for your support. I thank you for all that you do to help our young people in their learning and helping them chase their dreams. At this time, I'm going to call on Jim and Ann and Scott, and we'll have a minute or two for questions as it is, and then we will also be available afterwards to respond to questions and concerns you might have. So at this time, I'll call them forward, and then I think we'll have a microphone available, do we, or just, we do?
Yep, Jennifer's ready.
Jennifer's ready, so it's time to stump your officials.
Up here in front, Jennifer, in the red, just a minute, she'll bring you a microphone.
Jennifer is bringing the microphone to the former mayor of Bloomington, Coral Hool.
I hope it's okay that I'm
Yeah.
here.
Yes. You're on.
Am I on? Scott, I have a question for you. I read in the morning paper today about some of your recommendations on not covering all of your advisory commission meetings on cable. And I'm wondering if you're anticipating some pushback on that, the whole issue of transparency.
Yeah, I think I'm anticipating some discussion about it. I think right now we have had in place some expectations for boards and commissions and when they're on camera and when they're not on camera. And we've been getting more and more requests for reasons to go off camera. And so really we wanted to have a discussion about, a wider discussion, not just on particular commissions, but on all of our commissions about what level of transparency are we comfortable with in the way that we do boards and commissions here. If transparency was the only thing that we were concerned about, we ought to put every one of them on camera every time they meet. So I think we've all have some difference of opinion about what level that should kind of settle down into. And we just haven't had discussion about it at the council level. I think sometimes it's good to give the council a proposal that they can take apart and put back together, and that is a good way to have that kind of discussion.
Anyone else? Gosh, you guys did such a good job. Well, we've gone over a little bit in time, so I will thank you all for your attendance and your attention today, and have a good afternoon. Goodbye.